Hey folks, thanks for coming over to Capitalism for Good. This is a part of a larger project where I am on a mission to interview 100 business leaders about the positive impact that they have on their internal and external communities. It is through these interviews that we will dig into how we can use the ways in which we make and spend our dollars in order to benefit the greater good. Folks, today we have Hannah Withers. She is the caretaker of Maxine's Tap Room, a bar in Fayetteville, Arkansas. And I am telling you, if you are in the Ozarks, if you are in Northwest Arkansas, if you are in Fayetteville, you need to go to Maxine's. If you already live in the area, there's a good chance that you already know and love Maxine's. And there might also be a good chance that you already know and love Hannah Withers. I will put links in the show notes to Maxine's, the social media, all the good stuff. Links for mentions during the interview. There are also links in the company mentions document that is on the Patreon and also in the blog post on Patreon and the CFG company website. So you can find everything that Hannah talks about here. And she talks about so much. She might be the true embodiment of what I envision the Capitalism for Good project to be. She is also extremely eloquent and wise, and I, to be honest, kind of struggle summarizing up everything that she says here. If you are a nonprofit professional, specifically a leader or a fundraiser or a volunteer, maybe you sit on a board or a committee for a nonprofit, this is the episode for you. She really is a subject matter expert in the true numbers, dollars and cents, the thoughtful, the strategy behind sustainable funding and sustainable giving. If you are a business owner, a leader, a decision maker, again, this is the episode for you. She will talk about how they actually build that into the business model and the importance of it, how it benefits your business, how it benefits the community, all of those kinds of things. We talk about the legacy of Maxine, like the original Maxine that started Maxine's. We talk about also just what it's like to be a human living in this crazy world with all of these ups and downs and chaos going on, and how do you just keep going and get through all of those kinds of things. I'm telling you, chock full of information. So with that, I will just stop talking so that she can take over. Enjoy. I would love to just start with you and kind of just an overview of your background and what brought you to Maxine's.
Okay. Um, my husband and I met in Eureka Springs. He and I have been married for 25 years, and he is my 50-50 in everything. He is the chef in the restaurant that I am front of house. He's always worked back of house, and I've always worked front of house. And when we got married, we got pregnant quickly after. His grandmother from Little Rock would be proud to say that we did it the right way. She could count on her fingers. But we were pregnant quickly after we got married. I was 25 and Ben was 30. And we both worked at great places. For people that we love. We both worked in restaurants since we were 14. We ended up in this 2,500 person tourist town in the Ozark Mountains in Arkansas. And eventually, as people who think they are good in restaurants do, they decide that they want to open their own place. And we opened our first bakery. It was an artisan bakery. We moved to New York City for 6 months right after 9/11 and lived in Brooklyn. And he went to what was then called the French Culinary Institute, which is now called the International Culinary Institute. Jacques Pepin was one of the board members then, as was Jacques Torres. It was the year 2000, and let's see, Quinn was born in 2001, so it would have been early 2022, 2002. And we lived there for 6 months while he went to school, and we moved back and opened our own place. And we really thought we knew what we were doing. And boy, have we learned a lot in 25 years. But we we're distributing wholesale bakery products to Fayetteville, which is a college town about an hour away from us. We were delivering to the Arcegas, who are lovely community members who have great businesses still to this day in Northwest Arkansas. And they had this little Block Avenue location that was their bakery hub for all of their coffee shops. And they kind of said, we've been into your place and we're ready to get out and we really like what you do. And we've always wanted to do this. And we bought their, um, their, their spot and their equipment, and also sort of they passed the torch to us on their sort of community cornerstone place. Um, and that was in 2007. In 2008, the economy tanked, and we lost our first little bread company in Eureka to bankruptcy with our home and started from scratch. Staying with, I think we opened this little place in such a small tourism reliant town that we didn't realize how hard our equation was. Not only did we pick the one restaurant equation where almost everything that we make from hand has a 1 day shelf life, but then also we're in this town that is was susceptible to a Tuesday night when the auditorium was full, or a really long winter with too much ice. That I mean, it was just we really went in hard on one of the hardest equations, in my opinion. We have also owned a small plates place, where you can kind of control what you produce and have a volume that you do. And then, of course, we have this cocktail bar, Maxine's, where, I mean, liquor will last forever. And I can put a beautiful $400 bottle of scotch on the shelf that will still be there in 10 years if I need it to be. So we let the Eureka Springs location go. Fayetteville was a much more it was like there was a city hall and everybody took a coffee break at 10 and walked and got a coffee and bagel. And it just was sort of this normal economic equation of a little bit bigger of a city. And so we decided to keep the Fayetteville one. We totally started over financially from scratch. We eventually became friends by we created a business merchants association for our sort of part of the downtown district called Block Street Business Association. And it was sort of a volunteer, let's all wrangle together and sort of promote our street together and team together and collaborate. And we created an event called the Block Street Block Party, which eventually grew to an attendance of 15,000 people that were 5 outdoor stages and over 200 vendors, and one of the wildest 12 to 9 p.m. Sundays that you have ever seen. And it got so big, and I was kind of the last one standing from our original producers of that event. And it got so big that I couldn't do it by myself anymore and decided that it should go out on top. It was a free community party that was a $40,000 budget that I was in charge of gaining sponsorships for. And I was still dragging trash at 1 a.m. after cleaning up after all of Fayetteville. And it just sort of, it got bigger than I wanted to handle. So across the street from the bakery, within that equation of the Block Street Business Association, we met AndreaMasterson, who is the great niece of Maxine Miller. And Maxine Miller opened a bar directly across from our old bakery, which was called Little Bread Company. And she passed away. I think she died in 2008. I'd have to look. I never met her and I don't know her, but she opened the bar in 1950 as a single woman. And she was sort of this legacy place that has been in Fayetteville for so long. And I love it when people come into that bar and say, it's not the same as it used to be. I miss the jukebox. And I get to say, which of the 4 jukeboxes was your jukebox? Because she was there so long. I mean, she was there for almost 60 years and saw Fayetteville go through so many changes. And, the demographics of her downtown changed. There are pictures of a regular that used to come to her bar and tie up his mule in front of the bar at a certain phase. It was also a big law school hangout in the 70s. I mean, she really, she went through like a decade in a small business is so many lifetimes already. And to be in that same stool with her name on it for 60 years, I have thought about her a lot in the last 12 years that we've been in her bar. But her great niece, Andrea, inherited the bar. And I think that people really came to that bar because Maxine was such a character. I mean, she came with all these stories, and there are so many people that she supported and loved. And I mean, I still see stories on social media of how that one time Maxine paid her water bill when she was in college and would never take it out of her check. And I I don't know. I think people, it was right across the street from the bakery. It was kind of this place that we would go and get a beer at 2 o'clock in the afternoon because we started work at 2 or 3 in the morning.
Mhm.
And so we were getting out early. And we would go over with our staff, and it was just always empty. It's a shotgun brick building without any windows. And it's kind of one of those little buildings where the whole world goes away as soon as you enter it. And we started meeting with Andrea. And at that point in time in 2013, we did not have a real sort of adult cocktail bar. It was kind of the beginning of the
Mm.
craft and classic cocktail um, sort of re-evolution of whatever came
Yeah.
back, and
Yeah.
it was not a hotel bar or like a fine dining bar, but it was a place where grown-ups go to get a good Manhattan. And we really didn't have anywhere that was serving a Moscow Mule or
Mhm.
any of that stuff in Fayetteville at that point. So um, I don't know. We fell in love with this bar. We started conversations with her great niece, and it's been 12 years, and we saw that bar through a pandemic, and have learned about a lot about creating a culture on our staff and how I mean, I'm still learning a lot about how to do this. It's just an always changing. I mean, I think that's why I'm attracted to this industry, is because these spaces that we create they're alive and they're their own thing, and you can't always control them, and you can't always control the neighborhood around you. And um, I find that really fascinating and sometimes exhausting, but usually really interesting and always different. And we sold Little Bread Company to some of our staff that had been with us for a long time in 2014. We lapped over for about a year of having both of them open together right across the street from each other. And we literally had about 45 minutes a day where we did not have an employee that was on the clock in some way, between a bakery and a bar. And we got to see this full circle of life that I found really interesting, of like, oh, now I know why you have a triple espresso at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, because I also saw you at 3 o'clock in the morning last night.
Huh?
And I see now.
Uh-huh.
Um, but we really, I mean, I grew up, my parents are musicians. They were always very community minded and participated in a lot of places and organized events. And my mom had sort of a collaborative all women's annual concert called the Mother Folkers, with all of these like different women, 12 to, I think there were 12 of them, and it's still going. She was a founding member of that. And these women with all their own solo careers would get together and collaborate once a year. And for me, seeing that growing up, it was um, creatively really interesting, but it was also a brilliant marketing tool for all of them to expose themselves and cross promote to of their other sort of fan bases. And so I think for me, having spaces like this, I've always wanted to have a place that is a community cornerstone place. I mean, I worked at a lot of independent restaurants for a lot of really badass women who ran these restaurants, who said, "You're really good at this," and inspired me to learn how to be a better leader, and also to sort of take ownership of the way that I create my own world within my community. And so I think we've always naturally gravitated towards creating spaces that are like that. We did that we took a Pizza Hut, an old Pizza Hut building that we partnered with a friend who had a laundromat on one side of it, and we created this sort of seasonal rotating menu, quirky, kind of, I would say it was fine dining, but it was really kind of upper end street food in a way. It was very quirky. It became a really important industry place in our sort of culinary world. In Fayetteville, we would see a lot of chefs after they got out and people on their days off on Mondays and Tuesdays. And I don't know, I think food and music and spaces and all of those things breed community. And I find community really fascinating.
Yeah. I also have to tell you that it, one, it sounds like you are the perfect person to carry on Maxine's legacy. Like that, just like your background and all of the things that you're doing and you're talking about seem kind of right in line with the way that you describe Maxine to be, which is just amazing and so, so, so cool. And it's also really fascinating to listen to you talk about the community piece. So I'll say out loud a few different stories that I have heard about you in the past, I don't know, like few weeks here. It started with so I live in Louisville, Kentucky. I grew up in Missouri, lived in Seattle for a while, have been all over the place, but have good friends in Northwest Arkansas. So I've been there to visit a few times. And so I kind of was looking, I've got a little bit of a tie. I'm starting this project where my roots are, where my crews are, where people are interested within my network. But I also reached out via Reddit because I know that there is anonymous folks back there. If someone's actually like a jerk and not a good, well-respected person in the community, Reddit's gonna tell you
You'll read about it. Yeah,
exactly.
absolutely.
Exactly. And in fact, when I asked for like who are the coolest businesses within the Fayetteville area, Maxine's for sure came up. And I was like, all right, let's dig into this. And another one that came up was Block Street Records,
Wade
it
is
with
great.
Wade
He's on our
Ogle.
street and he's our friend and neighbor too.
Okay, so you should know if he didn't tell you that I interviewed him a week or two ago. And at the end of every interview, I ask these folks to shout out, like, who's another person that you see out there in the world that's doing things the right way? Like, shout out another business or leader. And you were there, and you were a part of his shout outs, and he raved about what you did with the Block Street Block Party and all of the effort and the things that you've done and the way that you've run your businesses and how cool that was. And so then also, I'm on the phone with my best friend, Ashley Heinzman, who lives now in Goshen
Okay.
in the area. And I was
Fayetteville adjacent.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm raving to her. I just had this great conversation with Wade. I'm getting ready to talk to Maxine, or I'm getting ready to talk to Hannah Withers from Maxine. I'm so excited of all of these things. And she was like, "You didn't tell me you were talking to anyone from Maxine's. If you would have asked me for how I would plan the perfect like night out or day out in Fayetteville, Maxine's would have been top three places. Like we would have ended the night there. We would have been there. It's my favorite place. I'm pretty sure I've taken you there before. She's like scrolling through her phone to find photos. Turns out I have been there before when she was in Fayetteville years ago. They were in New Orleans between then, which launched into this conversation with other friends that are in the area. And like I just want it to be on the record and especially like back to you that you've created and like continued and evolved this place that is truly beloved by all sorts of people all over the place. And I think that that is so cool. It's something so interesting. It is admirable. And anyway, I'm gonna stop talking now because I want to throw it
Thank
back to
you
you to
for
really talk
saying
about
that.
like,
It's very nice of you to say because when you put yourself out there like that, I mean, I've been waking up with rolling thoughts in the middle of the night for about 3 weeks from a Google review from a guy that just gave us 1 star that said deafen, or it said dark and deafening. And you're just like, you wake up and you're just like, God, man. And then, and then you do the thing where you're like, is there stereo too loud? You just second guess yourself and like the negative anonymity of the internet, of somebody who couldn't have just said, hey, would you mind turning down the music just a little bit? Which, like, how easy is that for us to fix it? Because we want you to be comfortable there and accommodate you. And that kind of stuff really can rot my brain from the inside out. So thank you for saying kind things. We also love our community back, and we would not be able to do what we do without all of the people that participate in our places and events, and without people like Wade, who have done things on the street for way longer than I've even lived in Fayetteville. And, like, I mean, it really takes a village, and Fayetteville has been changing really drastically, particularly since the pandemic, which I think a lot of places have. There was this sort of great reshuffle of everybody in the world, probably, but it's
Mhm.
really noticeable in our country. And so, I think about Maxine being there for 60 years a lot, because I often wonder, I don't know, it's a lot of change. It's a lot of shift. Our neighborhood is shifting. Our demographic is shifting. The university is changing the way that it operates. And, like, thank you for saying that, because I still, just being who I am, and Ben too, we wake up in the morning and be like, are we doing the right thing? Are we doing this the right way? What are we doing? And we've been doing it for a really long time, and we still wonder what we're going to do with our lives when we grow up. So,
Yeah.
so thank you. And we
Oh,
also, I mean,
yeah.
sorry to cut
No,
you
keep
off, but
going.
I also, um, a place like Maxine's that has, I mean, part of our vision, and we actually did this with two of our friends, Matt and Rebecca Champagne, who are, actually moved out of the country after, an election, a national
Mhm.
presidential election, and they're in Mexico. And they were only involved in the project for like 6 months, but the four of us sort of moved, into this concept of rejuvenating and sort of, tastefully and thoughtfully refreshing Maxine's without, making it a total makeover job. The four of us went in there with the intention, we were starting to see old legacy places just not as loved as they used to be. And sometimes when you know a place as well as Andrea does, or as well as Maxine did, then it is really hard to change things to stay relevant and continue to, not to use another pandemic word, but to keep pivoting to be relevant. And so for us seeing it from the outside, I mean, you cannot, I mean, we don't own the place. Andrea owns the place, but you cannot buy a business that comes with that many stories and that rich of a history. And I mean, we have a payphone in that bar where you can pick up the payphone and hear Maxine make her last call at the end of the night. And, there are not a lot of places left in this world of our profit margins in our industry getting smaller, and restaurant groups, and the way that all of this is sort of changing. Also, lease rates in a lot of cities where, you do have the foot traffic of people to support these places, or, college kids that support national brands that they're familiar with instead of our independent culture. Like, a lot of these, in that world of things, these places are going away, and there aren't as many of them that have 60 years worth of stories and history. And it was important to the four of us, to make sure that she was not forgotten, and that her story, and I mean, and her legacy was remembered. And so that I'm really, it's weird because Maxine's is the only one of the places that we've started that we did not build from, like, the little, it did not hatch out of our very own brains. And in a very real sense, it does not belong to us, and it will always be Maxine's bar. And it is probably the one that we love the most, because it just deserves to be loved by somebody. And we felt like we were the right people to do it. So we've done a lot of work to make sure that this woman, who was not only a baller and a gambler and a character and took care of her people, but I mean, she opened a bar. I mean, she couldn't even have her own checking account for 25 years after that without a man's signature. I don't think it was legal in Arkansas. I just met a woman named Mo Herms who did a podcast with me out of LA, and she told me that in Arkansas that it was not legal for women to bartend in 1950, and it had to have been a family run place. And so I don't know, like, how could you not want to love and shout her story from the rooftop, and make sure that she was remembered for what she was a community member who supported people on sports teams, and she supported women in need, and she supported all of these people. And like, it's really easy to call her a bar owner, but I mean, she was a community leader. And I just think it's important that we make sure that language sticks with her name forever.
Yeah. Yeah. Can we talk a little bit about the what you're talking about with her supporting other women? I find that so important, like you're talking about, especially in today's age. Like early on in this project, read a book called Give Her Credit by Grace L. Williams about the first woman-run bank in Colorado. Um, it was the first one in the US and went through that like up until 1989, it was still legal to require women to have a man sign off on any kind of loan, or including opening up a checking account. And like that, it's wild. I'm 35 years old, so that happened the year before I was born. It's wild. I don't, it's also
It's hard
frustrating. It
to
gives me a lot of hope, but also very frustrating that it's that
hard to
recent.
keep into perspective. And I find this living in a college town because there are so many, I mean, they're kids that are drinking in our bar. They're of age kids, but
Yeah.
I'm more than twice the age of most of them. And I don't really feel like I'm turning 50 this year. But when I'm sitting next to a 22-year-old that just came out of a gender studies class that did not exist when I was in college. And I mean, it's really hard to keep into perspective the things that like my mother's generation did for us. I mean, I remember my mother-in-law at one point when we were talking about abortion laws changing, and she was saying, you don't really understand because you weren't there for the first fight. Like, you don't understand what that was like and what that really meant in a lot of ways. And I think that Maxine's generation is really interesting. I mean, she's older than my parents' generation, and I mean, really, some of the stuff that she did was so cutting edge, and just by being a woman and doing what she did. I mean, she was very smart about hiring groups of or bartenders and staff that were connected to groups like fraternities or athletics. I mean, she did not have her own children, but there were stacks of Mother's Day cards that people sent her every year for Mother's Day from people that loved and respected her. And I don't know a lot of those stories, but I do hear snippets of them, particularly on alumni weekend. And I think I say this anytime anybody asks me about Maxine's, but the fact that there are three generations of University of Arkansas students, like grandparents with their parents with their kid who's now attending, who have all participated in that bar in some kind of a way, and are still continuing to come back to like bring their grandkid when they're graduating, currently. That is a really amazing equation. That does not happen in Starbucks, and it does not happen, I can't think of many coffee shops that have been around for 60 years, but that is a real evolution, and keeping it timeless and feeling like it has always been that way is sort of the way that we've looked at it. But I will say that when Lisa Corrigan came to us a couple of years, gosh, I think it was 2022, Lisa Corrigan, who did know Maxine, who's a professor at the University of Arkansas, came to us and asked us if we wanted to partner with her to establish and endow a legacy scholarship fund in the name of Maxine Miller. And it was pretty amazing. I mean, I think we set all fundraising standards at the university and came up against many conversations with the legal department at the university asking how appropriate it was to sell alcohol to fundraise and all of these sort of things where I'm like, what year are we in? Is this 1950? But I think we
Did
set
Maxine teach him nothing?
exactly. But I think we set a fundraising record in the amount of time we endowed it for $50,000 in, I mean, just a couple of months, really. And we just celebrated Maxine's 75th anniversary at the bar in March, and she would have turned 100 last year. And it's a really special place. I mean, and it takes a certain kind of people to a certain kind of person, people, Ben and I, to respect it and to understand that perspective of it and figure out how to take care of it that way. So we always treat the bar like it's sort of its own entity. Like when we have an employee issue or something like that, it's always like, this isn't about respecting me. This is about respecting this space. This space is important and
Yeah.
her story is important. And we have a certain amount of responsibility to handle this in a way that I think Maxine would agree with. And of course, all of that is assuming because I really didn't know her. And it's been kind of an interesting thing to meander through politics and the way that my husband and I live our lives because we would not assume that Maxine um, I mean, I would assume because of the industry that she was in and because she was a woman, certain things, but I would never assume how she would lean politically. And so, I'm very respectful of the page when we're writing letters to Tom Cotton and postcards to our Senate. That is something that I don't promote from the business page, but I do it from my own personal. And that crossover in our community, this small, is I'm respectful of the fact that I really don't know what she'd think. I think the only exception to that is the way that we support Pride, which is a very busy weekend for us. And I was the director of Pride for a year that was a big sort of volunteer director position where I really boosted attendance and really figure out a way to market to sort of our rural community around Fayetteville to establish our city as a safe place for people from that community to come and establish ourselves as a big ally. I mean, our Equality Center has been in existence for 20 years, but I felt like I brought a certain level of marketing to the event that helped draw some really big crowds. And this year, I think we topped 40,000 people and got a write up in Vogue magazine. And it is one of the happiest days of the summer. And I don't know how Maxine would feel about the fact that we're doing a queer light up dance party for 2 days. But I will say that, it's important for us to, I mean, I'm not a religious person in a sense, but I do think that it's important that when your community is supporting you, that you find a way to sort of give back. And if it were just up to me, I would probably be living out of a van and I would have given back everything that we've ever done. But because my husband is very smart and he does math better than I do, we have an allotted percentage of our sales and all of our concepts that we are allowed to give back and support the things that we want to support. And so, I mean, it's really easy for somebody with a big heart for their community that's a big cheerleader to just give away everything and then not be there to be able to support people. So he's really helped me in my concept of sustainable giving.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but we love our NWA equality people, and that is a big collaborative community way that we support. And we also, I think another thing that we did was at Leverett Lounge, which was our restaurant during the pandemic. And I think the pandemic for us, we opened it in 2017, I think, and we sold it in 2021 to a couple of younger friends of ours who really wanted to take it and run with it. And we just kind of were this sort of community space for food, and we already worked with all these farmers and we collaborated with all these other restaurant people and breweries and wine people. And so when shutdown came, the community just started, I mean, our farmers started bringing us cases of lettuce that they couldn't sell to their restaurants and all this food. And our distributors started bringing us stuff, and the community started donating money to us. And we created a program called Feed the Herd, which was a drive-through 4 to 5 course meal twice a week for hospitality people. And you would sign up online with your dietary needs. And we were able to employ a couple of people bringing these big bags of, all these different courses of all these ingredients. And it was kind of this masterclass for Ben to show up and say, okay, what did Benny Keith threw at us? And Fossil Cove would call and say, we want to include a 6-pack of beer for each of your hospitality people. And it was a way for us to connect in our parking lot in masks with a lot of people who work very social jobs and see a lot of people throughout their week that all of a sudden were like in their apartments. And there were a lot of people that we really connected with feeding that would just sit in their car and just cry tears of joy that they got to see people from their industry and wave at them from across the parking lot. And that was a really big that was one way that we have donated to our community and worked in the service world to our own industry that I am also really proud of. That was a big one for me. So
It's
it was an honor for us to become this sort of hub of a place that people trusted enough to just say, I mean, Premium Brands, our beer distributor, is like, hey, we're going to write you a check for $5,000, do something good with it. So we immediately established it into a 501c3 nonprofit that is called Fayetteville Independent Restaurant Alliance. And with Reese Roberts, who is one of the folks that we sold Leverett Lounge to, and Chrissy from Mockingbird, and Elliot from the Atlas Restaurant, the four of us at this point in time, I mean, we still meet and get applications, and we've distributed over $120,000 of community money to bar, restaurant, brewery, hotel people that either have medical emergencies or housing crises or electric shut-offs or whatever it is. And so that sort of piece of the pandemic that came about us serving our industry is still alive and thriving, and I love that too.
oh my gosh. I There's so much in there to be proud of. And
I
like,
know. I think you just asked me where I was from. So I'm sorry. I just started going. And
so
I'm like,
fun.
oh, by the way, this is all connected. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, I think there's one other way that
Yeah.
many years ago when this sort of craft cocktail market of the world that we live in now with cocktails that are everywhere and fantastic. There is a Miracle Bar program that does these Christmas pop-ups that's
Yeah.
sort of a franchise and a chain. They're lovely people. They're very good at what they do. But we looked into it one year at Maxine's and realized what it was going to cost and kind of what they did for it. And Ben and I stupidly and correctly also went, well, we can do that. We don't have to pay X amount of thousands of dollars for their whatever. And so we started popping up a 40-day cocktail bar called Holidays in a different location each year. And we donated all of we not only employed, the last year we did it, we employed over 40 restaurant people for holiday work. But we batched cocktails, and I started obsessively collecting vintage Christmas stuff like the blow molds and the trees. And I have all these eras that I got. I actually just liquidated all of it a couple of years ago with my friend Jessica. We had a huge Christmas, like 4 storage units worth of a garage sale. And I started collecting all of these pieces, and we did a Christmas holiday pop-up bar, and we donated all of the profits back to charities. So we supported Northwest Arkansas Equality, which is our pride group. We supported a couple of different women's shelters and sort of resettling halfway programs. I think we ended up giving over $200,000 over 3 years from that. And then when it turned into be just this big job that ate up our lives for 6 months, and
Yeah.
it wasn't our actual job, we decided that it was a better thing to just go out on the upswing. And we're like, out
Yeah.
like on the up. So we haven't done that in a few years, but we were able to do that with our performing arts center and hire their staff to help us during the pandemic. We did it all outside in their rose garden, and we've done some pretty creative things that have allowed us to give back to our community, which is, it's about trust from our community that we are going to handle their donations properly and that we will do something fun and relevant and important with it. And so we have been lucky that we have that trust from a lot of people in our town.
So, oh, one thing that so much that I'm struck by, but one thing I kind of want to start with is you have done such a great job about taking these things. I'm going back to the phrase sustainable giving, and like the endowment in and of itself is sustainable giving. Like again, I coming from a nonprofit background, like the thoughtful intention behind everything that you're doing, I would have thought that you would have been a full-on fundraising development professional for your entire career. Like you are
We've
expert
learned a lot
level
in doing
thoughtful.
that. I mean, that's what a
How did
small
you learn
business
it?
is. I mean, I've got to, Ben and I both have pretty good math brains anyway, which is always the non-creative, boring part that nobody wants to do when they open a small business. They have this creative vision, but then you realize there's like a cash flow and a seasonality, and you really have to make sure you're hitting your profit margins or you're not going to be there. And we did that once because we didn't know any better and we honed it. And we know in summertime how much we need to cut and where that line is and who goes home first. And I mean, it's a big moving, living, breathing thing, business is. And a part of that business is also paying taxes to the IRS at the end of the year. And you know what? I would way rather give $10,000 or however much that is and donate that to a tax deductible organization that I believe in that's doing good work than give it to the IRS. And I have a totally different feeling at the end of Pride weekend or when we get to cut a check to Fayetteville Independent Restaurant Alliance and pay rent for this our friend Mike who's wearing a prosthetic leg and he is going through he's a chef that is learning how to live with a new disability and wants to get back to work and all of our social programs have failed him and like I can do that and make it tax deductible with my own nonprofits and take care of but I can take care of my people properly and I can take care of my community properly and I would way rather write that check to people that I believe in and things that are making my community better than I would the IRS. No offense. I know the IRS has to employ people and do their thing, and I understand what taxes do, and I pay my taxes personally, and I pay my property taxes, and I am not some big anti tax weirdo, but like when you have to cut that big check, in April every year to the IRS for things that you've earned and you've put your blood, sweat, and tears into, then like I wanted to go somewhere where I believe in it. And so it is also part of the way that I believe that we should handle our money. And there are a lot of ways to do that creatively and legally. But I mean, it is also a motivating factor for me to share my profits after I make a living because we work
Mhm.
really hard, but I want to share my profits with the people that support my business. And it could be the queer community. It could be, whatever it is that I love. If they're doing good work in their community and they are people that also support our businesses, then that's where I want my money to go. I work really hard for that. And I want it to go somewhere that's important to me. And
Mhm.
so I treat it that way.
Yeah. I
Did that answer your question? What was your question?
100%, if that's not a selling point for a business owner to consider working that into their business model, I don't know what is. You've said what I've been saying for my entire career so eloquently that it's, again, not to make this like super political, but if anyone is unhappy in any way with something that the government is doing and you have a hand in the finances of your business, here's a direct way that you can control where your money is spent, where it goes, and how it helps your community.
Yeah.
Period. Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, I have control over that. And I mean, of course, you have to get good enough at your business to have write-ons before you have write-offs. And I talk about that a lot with baby business owners that are like, how do you do this? And how does this work? And I'm like, you've got to earn enough money that you're actually giving it away at the end of the year to the IRS to be able to write it off. And if you're only doing X amount of sales per month, like pick a percentage you can afford. I mean, I think people are surprised when they email us asking for donations. And I say, I'm really sorry, I can't donate anything else until September of this year because we have Pride and I have these things that we already support that are kind of our legacy give back ways that we operate. And I can't give you, 6 copper mugs and a whatever for your red nose, whatever event, because if I do that for everybody that emails me, then I won't be here. So I'm picky about it. And I make
Mhm.
sure that the people that we are supporting, whether it's a relationship with the people who are boards on the board, or if it's a direct demographic of people that are supported by that nonprofit who support us directly, but I make sure that they know how to thank us properly and market us back. And like, I also have enough experience in events and nonprofits that
Mhm.
I know how to thank a sponsor and thank for a donation and thank somebody who gives. And I'm picky about it. And we've done things with people who are like, I'm not doing that anymore because I'm just giving them our money. And I also need them to thank me in a way that's business appropriate. And so I think I started to learn about that when we started Block Street Block Party, because when we had to pull, now we have an outdoor drinking I'm outdoor refreshment area in our downtown district, which we started during the pandemic so that bars could sell to go drinks and you can drink on the street, like in New
Mhm.
Orleans up till 10 o'clock. And but before that, we used to have to pull a temporary picnic permit to serve alcohol in the street for an event. And you had to have a nonprofit to pull that permit, which I always thought was crazy. And it had to have a sales tax permit, and you're required to give 25% of your sales back to the 501c3 to have a temporary serve, like a temporary beer or liquor permit on the street. And so when we did that, we started Block Street Business Association so that we could take back that 25% from each of the beer gardens so that it would help make the event go. And then as I'm sponsoring that event, it is also a tax write-off for me, which I can work in a percentage of what I'm donating. And so it's like I also have to have some, it either has to be such a feel-good cause for me that I really believe in it because it's good work, or it has to be, an event that is within walking distance of our bar that is actually going to affect my sales so that I can justify it. Like, we talk about how to do this so that we're still going to be here a
Yeah.
lot, because it's easy to just give it away.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
There's so
I
many things that I want to support and love. And so I sometimes find interesting collaborative ways to invite them into the bar to,
Right.
promote their own cause, and like, let's do something creative that like maybe we donate and sponsor a little bit, but we offer the space and we make it a night for, there's a lot of ways to say, to test out the waters and see if it's a good collaboration for us. And so I don't know, we've tried everything.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I it just I believe so much in transparency and to like reflect back when I think some of these things. So it might sound really cheesy, but I just need you to know that the last thing that I just wrote down was she is so smart. Like underline so smart.
Well, we've
Um,
learned a lot of things, and um, yeah, we've learned a lot in the last 25 years. We've made a lot of mistakes, and we've learned a lot of lessons in business and in philanthropy. And I think I finally, in the age that I'm in, I'm learning sort of how to say no. I see friends of mine in their 30s that are like spinning 90,000 plates. And I'm like, I did that once. And I actually can say, I'm too tired for that now. And I'm going to focus really well on one thing. And I don't know. We talk about how we do business and how we support our community a lot. I mean, it's hard not to do what we do for a living and talk about the aesthetic of a restaurant that you're eating in, or like what the service was like, or what the quality is like. And so we talk about, I mean, we have potential glasses for every building that we walk into. Like, what would you do with this? What would happen if we moved here and we did this here? And like, what does it look like to you? And I don't know, it's part of probably the insanity of our industry is that you can't, I mean, we talk about how to do it with anybody that wants to, with anybody that wants to, really.
yeah.
Which is how I'm here with you.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to know you, Hannah, as a person, as a human, because you've talked about so much here. You've learned so much. You're such an expert at the things you're doing. You are
I don't know.
meticulously thoughtful. I truly, this is, but also another part that it is really sticking out to me. There's two different kind of themes here. One, when you're talking about your story. And this is just like part of the natural progression of our world. This will continue. There will be things coming up, but like you, throughout this career, you've dealt with big things, like when you were in New York and you are in Arkansas in the 2008 market crash, and then you've got the pandemic. Like we've got all of these big tragedies that are marking these things, 9/11, all of this stuff. And then you've been able to adapt and evolve and move through all of those things. But also, part of this question is me also as a human asking, I gave you a compliment earlier and we were talking about like being up in the middle of the night thinking about the one-star review. Like there are all of these things that are outside of our control, that some things they're just one not great review, and other things they're like these large, hard to wrap your brain around concepts and chaos and things. How do you, as a person, create or maintain any sense of stability that allows you to keep going and to keep going in such a positive and impactful and helpful way? Like how are you
I
still
think,
doing this and telling me about the things that you're thinking of in the future?
well, I'm not doing it as fast as I used to, I can tell you that. But I think, I mean, I think that any small business is total chaos. I think it is this wild ride of like you're putting yourself out there with this vision and this creative idea, this space that you think is going to serve your community somehow and be a part of this bigger thing. And it is, there's some of it you can control and some of it you can't. And I think, particularly the food and beverage industry, a lot of us that are in that industry, I don't know if we're neurodivergent. I don't know. I don't know
Yeah.
what's wrong with us that we love that chaos, but like we work under a lot of pressure. Everything is different each night. You never know what's going to react and how anybody's going to react to anything on any given happy hour or, I the things that I've heard from people that are like actually out in public as functioning human adults is insane. And so I think it takes a certain personality type to do that. And my husband and I are big adventurers in general. Like we love live music, we love traveling, we love trying new things, we love, um, I I personally, I think my personal philosophy, and I think a lot of people sort of grokked this during the pandemic when I think people started making really big swings. They're like, oh God, we're all going to die. Like, we could actually all die tomorrow. And it could be just some weird, wild thing that wipes us all out as a species. I am moving to Barcelona, or I want to see if I can afford a historic home, Victorian, in Omaha, Nebraska, that nobody has lived in except a bunch of raccoons since whenever. And I'm going to start an influencer Instagram, like the way that our world changed. And I think the way our world changed during the pandemic and the way that people approach the choices they make in their lives, like who you're married to and who your friends are and what your job is and where you're living and how much you're doing it and all these things. And I think people made really big changes. And I don't know what it is about me and the way that I live, but I always like a big swing. I always have. I've always loved big choices, big moves, big ideas, big, like, I don't know, is this too weird? Let's try it. And then making it successful. And I also enjoy saying, that was so good that I'm ready for it to stop right there. And I don't have to do that anymore. And I didn't sign up. I'm not in a contract with the devil. And I do not have to do this for all of eternity. And I'm allowed, I mean, we still get people that ask for Block Street Block Party or why we don't. There are people that send us messages to the holidays Instagram every year that are like, why aren't you there? I'm like, I didn't want to. And out of all of the things that you have to do when you own a small business, and you have to show up and you have to be consistent, you have to watch your numbers and you have to micromanage sometimes people that have worked for you for 15 years and like remind them of the way that what we're doing there and all of the hard things that you're going to do. The one thing that you do get as an independent business owner with all the risks of the crazy that comes with it is that you get to decide what it is and how long you want to do it, and you get to independently decide what you're doing with your life. And I can sell a place or I can move away from a place. And I think that I, that freedom to me is more important mostly most days than the stability as somebody that has an insurance policy for me or is paying my payroll taxes. Like, I love the roller coaster of it. I love the chaos of it. I like the fear of, oh my God, this is our slowest summer we've ever had. This might be it. We might bottom out. I have no idea. But like, what's going to happen next? Because something always does. And so I love the big swings. I love a big party. I love big friendships. I love people who have obnoxiously loud, really specific, unique laughs that you can hear like from across a venue, and you know that that is your friend Emily. I love really big things, and it's weird because we have really small businesses. Like, when I realized what the SBA considers a small business, which I think is like under $5 million a year, maybe, is a small business. And I'm like, dang, we are a micro business. Like, we're good and we're solid and we do really great sales and we have a lot of support in our community. But like, we're such a tiny little speck of places that make up this independent world. And I think that was really obvious during the pandemic when they said, hey, man, we really respect the fact that you guys are going to be in small places with people that have to eat food. And this is a really contagious thing. But like, we actually can't afford for you not to go back to work. And so I think, the watching Tom Cleo, I don't know if I said his name right, do the big restaurant lobbying for like our safety and our causes, and all of these things were things that came out of the pandemic where it was like, hey, you actually do need places of our size. And when you put us all together and we close down, we are a big economic factor in our country. And there are a lot of us. And and while we're financially important, I also think this is also not answering your question. And I'm so sorry. I
No,
think
it
I'm on
absolutely is. Keep
again.
going.
But I think it's really important that we are the places that sort of create the cultural fabric of our communities. Like, we are a representation of who is living there, and who is living in our neighborhood, and what kind of music we're listening to, and what we're all wearing on a night out after a performance art show, or what happens when the Andy Frasco show, lets out a George's at 1:30 in the morning. And like, we are a representation of who we are as a community. And I think in the world of housing that we're struggling with, and also corporations and profit margins and all of these things that are kind of changing about our industry, I think that we are seeing a lot of places that have been there for a really long time give up,
Yeah.
because it is not financially viable. I mean, we are definitely making less than we used to, percentage wise, in our industry. And I think it's really sad, because I think we're like the tastemakers. We set the vibe. We do all that good stuff. When you come to visit your friend Ashley in Fayetteville, and she says you have to have lunch at Hugo's, and then we're going shopping at Block Street Records, and then we're going to Maxine's, like, that is your impression of who we are as a community. And it makes people want to move there or move away from there if maybe it's not their thing. But I think we are important culturally, financially, and I think that was a really big takeaway for me during the pandemic, is that what we do has to be thoughtful, and it has to be important, and it has to be intentional. And but giving back to my community and supporting it back is our way of saying thank you for allowing us to have this wild, independent lifestyle that we get to do. Thank you for trusting us with these places for you. That's an honor, don't you think?
100%.
Like, they
100%.
pick us. Like, we don't get
Yeah.
to just drop in anywhere and say, hello, I'm a part of your community. But like, that is a big honor, to be able to participate in a whole collective of people that way, just based on how we serve a drink or set the lights, or
Yeah.
how we upholster the booths, or whatever it is that you love. But I mean, that's a big deal.
Yeah. And again, not to take us down a rabbit hole of like what I've been thinking about
I'm
with
not
like
even
AI
sure
and
what
tech.
rabbit hole we're in right now, but we're in it together. So we're gonna be okay. But
But like I've been thinking so much about, like we talked about, like AI and tech and how it takes away brain health. And like I just talked to someone yesterday who owns a small business that's based in St. Louis and is very focused on St. Louis things. And she was like, she also thinks about like the future of creative outlets. And at
Yeah.
the end of the day, she was like, but what we offer is curated in high quality in a way that technology can't do it. And like, I think that's the same thing with small businesses and things that you are creating throughout your entire career is like you, it's like you said, it's taste making, it's curating, it's being intentional and thoughtful. The way you described, I think it was one of your restaurants earlier, is like quirky fine dining. Like that is unique in a way
I mean, it
that
was like an eight
AI
by
can't do it.
an 8x8 bathroom that's like mirrored ceilings and covered in flamingos. And we had accidentally ordered these toilet seats that were like epoxy that had like coins and dollar bills floating in them. And we had three of them. And I missed the 30-day return to get them back. And so we mounted them to the wall where you could lift up the toilet seat and you could read printouts of our 1-star reviews. Like,
Oh my
I
God.
would never forget that what they do to their shrimp is a mortal sin. And I'm like, we're going to own it. And it was like this tiny little over the top bathroom with like little mints and accoutrements for ladies and all of the things. And it was just ridiculous. And it's so, I mean, people ask me because I dress boldly and I am opinionated and I can definitely walk in and make an immediate impression. And people ask me all the time if I'm an artist. And I'm like, not in the traditional sense of the word. But actually, what we do is we create these spaces and they're this like personification of who we are. And it's really personal. It is like it's like writing, your personal mission, your artist statement when you dump a bunch of money into a building, especially if you don't own it, to like to execute this concept and then like have the theater of like I don't have a bad day and here we are to serve and do all of these things in our industry. Like, yeah, it's performance art and it's also sculptural art. It's like the art of space. And so when people ask me if I'm an artist, I'm like, kind of, except my medium is like buildings and downtowns. I think I don't really know, but I it is a really, I mean, once you have open that space and your friend in St. Louis has that place that nobody else can create, and it's like it is a personal, like you're just wearing yourself on your sleeve for the entire world to leave you obnoxious reviews or tell you to fuck off in the middle of the night on a bad night, after a football game when they're misbehaving and you have to ask them gently to go home or whatever that is. And like, it is a big investment of yourself and it is a big investment in your community, and you're asking people to come and support this big piece of art that you just made, and you're also responsible for all these people that work with you executing it and have to make their up to, like, it is not for the faint of heart. I have also, met with several people who have also filed for bankruptcy and lost their businesses at a certain point in time, and it's tricky. Like, it's high risk and sometimes the reward is hard to see. So like, we wake up every day and I insist on seeing the reward every day that I wake up, and I am not going to look at the risk, and I'm going to focus on all of the amazing things that we have had the opportunity to do. Like, when do you get to just wake up and decide you're going to be an event planner and this is how you're going to execute a party for 2,000 people in your space for 130 over a weekend, and you change all the lights and the disco balls and bring in a light up dance floor, and like, who gets to do that kind of stuff? Are you kidding me? It's magic. It's so fun.
Oh my
I
gosh.
hope I never age out of any of it, but
Oh, I hope you don't either. This is my least favorite part because now I have to attempt to like wrap it up or else this will be
okay,
14 hours
we can
long.
just keep going. We can meet
I know.
weekly and chat about whatever you want, but
I really want to. Okay, my final question that I have for everyone is who is another business and or leader that you see out there in the world that's doing things the right way? And it can be absolutely anyone. It can be an old boss of yours, a mentor, a client, a customer, someone you're a customer of, absolutely anyone in the world that you think deserves a shout out.
can I name two?
100%, yeah.
Okay. One of them is a woman that I don't know very well. Her name is Kate Gerwin, and she owns a bar in Albuquerque that has swept all of the best new places since the pandemic and all of the kind of spirited awards of our industry. She is really brilliant, and the way that she is approaching um, supplying her own product and supporting the community through her bar, I think is really fascinating. She's also really busy. She is on, I think she was on a Netflix show and on a bartending Netflix something recently. And so she's probably traveling somewhere glamorous like Singapore. I don't know. I met Kate. She actually came into our bar with somebody that we know in Fayetteville, Sean Traxler, who was a bartender at another place. And she asked me a few questions. She just kind of wanted to poke around a little bit, and she ended up writing us up for one of the best bars in America for 2019 in Esquire magazine, which is like when I got that email, I was like, this is one of those spammy thing that like they basically want me to buy a warranty or an ad or something for whatever, and then ended up in this beautiful sort of spread. And it came out during the pandemic, when we were shut down, when Ben and I were just like blowing out our speakers up there, drinking alone, going, what is happening right now in this bar that was always full of people? And then it wasn't. And Kate is somebody I really respect. I respect her approach for the way that she is thinking about her product and the way that they're making it. I also madly adore following her on Instagram and the way that they have sort of DIY'd their space with artists. I mean, people in our industry are just so multi-talented that I don't know why we hire people to do things like that that aren't in our industry, because we're all such a bunch of weirdos and freaks. And Kate's place is amazing. And I really respect her, and don't know her very well. But she's great and her space is great. The other woman is a woman named Marilyn Magenity, who I worked for her in my 20s at a place called the Mercury Cafe and in Denver. And it recently sold to some women. I think Marilyn was in business for over 50 years. And she had, it was this amazing building that she built, that she bought. I think it was in the 80s. I think she started in the 70s on Colfax or 17th. I don't know. She just kind of popped into my head, and I should have come with some more facts to back me up on what she does. But this building had an upstairs ballroom, and I bartended in my early 20s for like the beginning of the swing dancing craze, where we would like bartend for happy hour and they would come and get free lessons, and then they would come back in all their crinolines. And then downstairs she had this jungle room, is what we called it, with all of these massive beautiful plants, and there were like paper mache tigers that were like in neon hoops that were these big 3D sculptures all over the place. And there was a piano side where we did brunch, and it was just this 3-ring circus of crazy. She made everything from scratch. Well, when I knew her, was a single woman. I assume she still is. I don't know what her relationship status is, but that place was hers. And it was the first place I worked where I just felt like the place itself was such an extension of who that person was, that like they were there even when they weren't there. You know, she was sort of this entity that like embodied her space. And she had this beautiful silver blonde hair and these witchy, beautiful blue eyes, and was very intense. And she ran the line and did a lot of the cooking for Sunday brunch. And I would have to, you would have to call your tickets. I mean, this is like, I don't know. I feel like it was hundreds of seats, but I don't really know how big it was in my mind now. But there were several servers, and we would have to come in, and Marilyn would be on the line cooking, and she'd have your back to you, and you had to call out your order on your ticket in order of like, you know, protein and then side and then like egg style. Like she had a specific way you had to do it because she was doing most of it by memory. And then she had all of these line cooks that were facing us that had to keep looking at tickets and stuff. And she would just turn to you from the line when you're holding like stacks of plates in the busiest Sunday brunch shift. And she would say something like, yes, I will give you that side of toast, but you'll have to do a trick for it. Like she is such a character, and she is such an icon in the Denver scene. They had punk shows in the 80s. She did all this live music and live poetry stuff there. She's a poet herself, and that place was just so much a part of her life. Like, I can't think of a time where it's occurred to me that Marilyn ever took a vacation or did anything. And I think that was the first place. I had just dropped out of college from a poli sci and journalism almost full ride in Washington, D.C. And I was 17 years old. And I got there and was like, this is not what I want to be doing. I am not ready to make these decisions. Everybody was so serious about their degrees, and I was not. And I moved back to Denver and was working for Marilyn. And I think that she was the first adult, like in that type of setting, to just look at me over a line in the middle of whatever rush we were in and say, hey, Hannah, you're really good at this. And
Mhm.
my Virgo brain immediately was like, I'm going to get better at this. And this is what I want to do someday. Like, I knew right then that that was something that I wanted to learn how to do. And I think that was when I really started taking my career as a server and a worker more seriously. And eventually, with the confidence of somebody else who's also good in their industry, we were able to just partner up and take that big swing.
Yeah.
I can't remember your question. Marilyn Magenity and Kate Gerwin.
Yeah.
They are who I think you should talk to.
Yeah. Shout out
I
to all.
love I love women in our industry. I know that it's getting better, but I do feel like women chefs and women business owners, and I feel like they're often overlooked. And I love picking out people that look different than all the other people who are receiving James Bearden nominations and all of those things. Like, I look for women and I look for people of color and I look for people that are different than what it has always looked like before. And I think that Kate and Marilyn are two shining examples of women who do really interesting and amazing stuff their own way in our industry.
Yes, yes to all of that. And also just thank you for doing this. I could say thank you for a million things. One, I think that you are a perfect fit for this project. It is just it said so much about what, like, you are the embodiment of what I was going after when I like envisioned what this would look like. And
I mean, yeah, it is capitalism, but yeah, we can use that for a lot of good. All of us
exactly.
can.
Yeah. Thank you so much to every single person that's listened, every single person that has told someone else about it, that has shared an episode, that has sent a blog post to someone else to read, that shares on social media, that responds back to me, that engages and lets me know what they think and what they're hearing. Thank you so much to everyone who has subscribed through the Patreon. These subscriptions are what fund the project and keep it going. There's so many different tiers available, starting at $1 and $2 a month, and each tier gets you access to different kinds of things. So, for example, the $2 a month listener tier gets you access to interviews on Thursdays, so early access to the audio and video versions of interviews that are out every Thursday, typically in the evening time. Your $3 a month member tier adds on these weekly between the interview series on Mondays. That's what I gave a little sneak peek. There are some early examples of those between the interviews that were posted on the main feed, so that folks could kind of get a lay of the land and what's behind the motivation for this project. Those reflection episodes are still going every Monday, and the folks in that member tier are still have access to those things. The VIP tier has access to merch. I really do my best to give back to those that are joining. So check the show notes for the link to the Patreon. There's a lot there if you're interested in any of the behind the scenes of like how this project gets made from the back end. Like, if you are someone who is interested in starting anything that looks similar to this, whatever your topic is, like, I am really open, just like I'm asking these folks that I'm interviewing about like the mistakes that they made. I do my best to be very open about the mistakes and the lessons learned that I made, plus the resources that really helped me, the people that I'm looking up to. Like I yeah, why not share my experience there? So that's all available there. And just in general, I truly want to hear from you. So please message me on Instagram, message me on the Patreon, leave me a review that tells me what you think of it. Email me your thoughts and your suggestions, including the things that you don't like. I got tough skin, people. You can tell me the things that I need to improve upon. I am very open about early days, early stage, that this entire project and almost everything that goes into it is brand spanking new to me. And I am learning, not just from these leaders that I'm interviewing, but I'm learning about the technical side of things. I'm learning about social media. I'm learning about advertising. Like, I'm learning about all of these types of things, and I am happy to share what I have learned as well. And so I want your feedback. I want the things that I'm not talking about that you want to hear about that is within this Capitalism for Good space. So reach out to me. I want to hear from you. I truly do. Send me your thoughts and I'll do your research. Like I said, I really am listening and kind of creeping to see where people are coming from, where you're located, what your interests are. And so if there's an industry or an interest of yours that I haven't hit on that you are really interested, like, send me your thoughts. If you have a question that is related to this Capitalism for Good project, I'll do the research here. So send them on over. I'm already doing it. I might as well do something that fits what you're asking for and what you're looking for. Finally, my last little plug and shout out here is, if you are interested in working together to build better community, check out the business website for CFG. It's at capitalism-for-good.com. There's also a link down in the show notes. And whether you are interested in starting or expanding a community give back initiative with your company, if you want to plan a volunteer day and you don't want someone that's already your full-time employee taking away from their normal job to do it, if you're looking for a charity partner within a specific space or that aligns cleanly with your company values and your philosophy, or if you want to perhaps talk about some education around the value of community partnerships and what that can add to your business if done well and done efficiently and effectively, I would love to help. So I'd be happy to get on a phone call, see how CFG can help you with your community goals. Once again, would love to hear from you if you've got thoughts, needs, questions, interest anywhere within that space. I truly believe that we are stronger when we work together, and that we can truly make a really impactful, positive future if we just put all our brains and our skills together and leverage those things to build better community. So, all right. That's enough. Let's go leave this place better than we found it.